While walking in the halls, someone pushed me and said, "My sister used her husband's death to get closer to my husband, then started demanding I divorce him so she can be with him instead." I turned around completely confused, staring at this woman I'd never seen before in my life. She was maybe 40 years old, blonde hair pulled back in a messy ponytail, wearing blue scrubs like she worked somewhere in the hospital. Her face was flushed red with anger, hands trembling as she pointed directly at me. "I'm sorry, but I think you have me confused with someone else," I said, trying to keep my voice calm and reasonable. "I honestly don't know who you are." She laughed, but it was bitter and harsh. "Don't you dare play dumb with me, Rachel. You know exactly what you've been doing to destroy my family." But here's the thing, I wasn't Rachel. My name is Emma, and I had absolutely no idea what this strange woman was talking about. I was at the hospital to visit my friend Lisa, who just had knee surgery, not manipulating anyone's marriage or demanding divorces. I tried to explain the mix-up, but she just shook her head in disgust and stormed away down the corridor, leaving me standing there completely baffled by the encounter. The weird confrontation stayed with me all week long. Something about the woman's absolute certainty bothered me deeply. She seemed so sure she knew me personally, so completely convinced I was this Rachel person who had apparently done terrible things to her family. I mentioned the strange incident to my husband Mark when I got home that evening, expecting him to laugh about the obvious case of mistaken identity. Instead, his face went completely pale, and he got this expression I'd never seen before. Something between fear and guilt, like he'd been caught doing something wrong. "What exactly did she look like?" he asked, his voice strangely tight and careful. I described the blonde woman in detail, and Mark just nodded slowly without saying anything, then abruptly changed the subject to what we should order for dinner. But he seemed incredibly distracted for the rest of the evening, constantly checking his phone and jumping whenever it buzzed with notifications. Over the next several days, I started noticing other strange things about Mark's behavior. He'd been working late more often recently, coming home after 9 with explanations that felt rehearsed and overly detailed. He'd get mysterious phone calls and immediately step outside to answer them privately. Our usual easy conversations felt stilted and awkward, like he was being extremely careful about every word he said. Then I found a sympathy card tucked in his car's glove compartment. It was signed, "Love always, Rachel," and dated exactly 3 weeks ago. The card expressed heartfelt condolences for your difficult time during this loss, but didn't specify what kind of death or tragedy. Mark had never mentioned anyone named Rachel to me, and I couldn't think of anyone in our social circle who had recently died. When I asked him directly about the card, Mark claimed it was from a coworker whose elderly father had passed away suddenly. But when I checked his company's employee directory online, there wasn't any employee named Rachel listed anywhere. I even casually asked his assistant about recent deaths affecting the office, and she seemed genuinely confused by the question. I started paying much closer attention to Mark's daily patterns and behavior. He'd been getting text messages at weird hours that he'd quickly delete before I could see them. He'd developed completely new habits, like taking long showers immediately when he came home and washing his work clothes right away instead of putting them in our regular laundry hamper. Last Tuesday evening, I made a decision that changed everything. Instead of trusting his explanation about going to the gym, I followed him after work. Mark drove to a coffee shop across town that we'd never been to together and met with a woman sitting alone at a corner table. Even from my car parked across the street, I could clearly see it was the same blonde woman who'd confronted me so angrily at the hospital. They sat close together at their small table, her hand resting on his arm, both of them looking intense and serious. The way she touched him, the way he leaned into her space, it definitely wasn't the body language of casual coworkers or ordinary friends. When she started crying, Mark reached across the table and took both of her hands in his, holding them while she wiped her eyes with napkins. I sat in my car watching this intimate scene unfold for nearly 20 minutes, my mind racing frantically to understand what I was actually seeing. Then the woman looked up and stared directly at my car. She'd spotted me watching them. She said something urgent to Mark, and they both turned to look at me through the coffee shop's large front window. That's when I finally realized what the woman at the hospital had been desperately trying to tell me about my own husband.